Right. Hi, folks. We're going to talk about sales and pricing today. Um, I touched a little bit on this topic on the last presentation, mostly focused on displays and customer experience. But we're going to do a deep dive today on making the most of your time at the farmer's market. Um, it's a big investment to go to the market. It's either a full day that you're not working on your farm or a full day that you're staffing the booth with someone else. There's setup, there's tear down, there's risking perishable product. What can you do to make that as lucrative a day as you can? All right, so just a little bit about my background. My name's Laura Bennett. I have been working in, fresh produce marketing for a long time. My first 10 years farming was at a 60-acre certified organic established farm, started in the 80s. Had 30 years running with their markets, and we're at 8 farmers markets around the Willamette Valley. So definitely like mostly in Portland, some in Corvallis, some in Newport. And then for the last 4 years, I've been with Eloisa Organic Farm. We're running 15 acres and are selling at 3 farmers markets now. We've got 2 Saturdays and a Sunday. That's really nice for us because what doesn't sell on Saturdays, we can take straight to that Sunday market without having to store it and wait for a Wednesday and do another sort on your produce. Um, and so I'm mostly going to be pulling from my experiences at these farms and what has worked for us in these different settings. One from an established, one from someone who's just starting. Um, and yeah, just what's worked for us. I think there's different solutions and challenges and characters at every market space. But I hope this can be helpful for folks that are just starting out in your market farming career. So a couple main topics we're going to go over today. We're just going to talk about ins and outs of retail pricing and all the different ways to think around it. And really a big one for me, diversifying your sales outlets. I think a big takeaway from this is understanding that retail sales can be inconsistent. And sometimes it's weather related, that you have a slow market. Sometimes it's just kind of for no reason. And to just understand that that's the nature of the game that we're playing here and know that you can do a lot to make the most of your time at market and get some more stable sales that aren't retail. Um, and then just talk about the benefit of clear communication, whether that's in your communication with your restaurant clients, um, or just the signage that you put out at market to make that as smooth of an experience for your customers as possible. And then we'll touch a little bit on record keeping. So first thing I want to just give space for is understanding that pricing is really hard. Farming's really expensive and the cost has gone up on, plastic mulch and seeds and greenhouse equipment, fertilizers and just like everything. And so, deciding how to price your food that people need in the community is really challenging. There's a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of questions that you're trying to ask yourself that feel like they can be conflicting. And so I just want to say that there are a lot of farms who are thinking through these questions in really creative ways that involve partnerships with other local organizations and nonprofits, unique funding structures, different things like that to make sure that the farmer gets paid their worth and food goes to the community that needs that food. So I just want to make space for that and acknowledge it. I'm not necessarily going to be able to answer all these questions today, but just know that this is a hard topic. I'm here to help y'all figure out how to, really make the most of your time at market and increase your sales. And helping to increase your profits can really allow you to do other community-based work in your farm experience and in those market spaces too. So a whole lot of different points on retail pricing. First thing I want to say, especially for folks who are just starting out, you might have a tendency to kind of lowball yourself at first and being like, oh, I'm new to this market. I'm just starting. I'll just put everything really cheap. Like nobody knows me. I don't know what I'm doing. You do know what you're doing. You made it to a market. You do know what you're doing / nobody knows what they're doing. And so, I think just understand that like you've made it to a market, you're bringing your food. Maybe you want to factor in, oh, maybe I have an organic certification and they don't, like when you kind of compare your pricing, but don't just automatically think that because you're new, you should have cheaper prices. In general, I think anybody who's selling at a market, um, you just want to match your market. That doesn't mean you need to match exact prices of your, competitors or your fellow vendors. But it means that you're keeping your tabs on what the range is at your market for certain things. Maybe I'm in Corvallis and bunches go for $3 and there's no way I can up it to 4. But this market is up in Portland and the bunch price is definitely $4 a bunch. So just understand, how to have those relationships with fellow vendors where you're talking about pricing in the morning, kind of making those decisions together, being transparent about, this is a day where we cleared out a whole tomato house and we have like a friggin' 2 pallets of tomatoes today. We're dropping the price. Just want to let you know, and just be able to have those open conversations with people. Um, Likewise, it's really important to keep tabs on what grocery store pricing is. Even if they're grocery stores that you don't shop at, especially if they aren't, you want to take periodic trips to those grocery stores and really know what are people seeing at Safeway, Fred Meyer, New Seasons, Whole Foods, at all these different places. What are they seeing? And these days it's a lot more validating than not. It used to be really competitive of like, well, damn, yeah, it is a lot more expensive to come to the farmer's market. But these days it's pretty comparable. You go to the grocery store and you realize how much organic food is, even conventional organic food. And you're like, wow, I really don't need to budge on my prices if I'm comparable with this at the grocery store. So just having that context is really helpful for your decision making. Um, in general, I like to keep my individual pricing high, whether that's a per pound price or a per each price. I keep that a higher price, and then I offer deals for quantity. If I've got so much of something that I really, moving quantity is my goal, then I don't want to just drop the price for an individual thing, because then that person takes one thing and I want them to take more. So I'm going to leave, for example, my tomato price at $4 a pound, but then I'm going to make these 1 quart boxes that weigh 2 pounds and I'm going to put them on sale for $7. So it's $1 off. It's $1 savings for people. They see that it's a deal, they take it. And you've also succeeded in moving quantity. It also has the added benefit of not weighing every single item out at the register and having some grabbable items. So that can be pre-made boxes or bags like this, or it can be just like a 2 for deal or a 3 for deal. And then what that kind of allows you to do, if you keep that base, you're like, I know my worth, I'm aware of what pricing is, I'm going to be within a good range in my market. And then I'm going to offer those deals for quantity. When you know that you're making the most that you can, then when it comes to a situation where, say, you've got a customer who's maybe spending a lot at your booth and you're like, yeah, I would love for this person to spend $100 a week with me every single week. Do what you want to do to like round their total from 102 down to $100. People like that kind of thing. Even though it's just $2, they feel cared for. And likewise, if you've got customers who are paying with WIC vouchers or SNAP tokens or double up food bucks, or are just talking with a family at your booth that is, talking about how expensive things are and it's really challenging for them. Those are the issues, those are the moments where you can make an exception and really make that discount where it counts, and feel like you're not eating into your bottom line because you hold strong with the rest of your sales. And again, that's a part of what we're doing and feeding each other in community. Maybe if I wasn't being as good with making the most of my money with those individual pricing and offering those couple of deals, and keeping my prices higher, I wouldn't feel like I could give those discounts all the time. But because I do, I'm able to give them out somewhat freely. It helps a bit. To also retain those customers and keep them coming back, because they got kind of a special treatment there. Um, And then I just want to note that lowering your prices doesn't always sell more, like particularly as a reactionary thing. Like if you're seeing that it's a very slow day, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't come home with all this produce. I'm just going to lower all my prices. I don't really recommend doing that. If it's a slow day, you're not selling product because there's not people there to buy your product. Price isn't the issue. And so, yes, maybe that's a day where you could run more sales and different things, but it does not just mean across the board do that. It means, what can I do for the few people who are going to come through my booth to engage them? Am I going to sample? Am I going to, push my displays out? What am I going to do? Um, and then again, sometimes it really is important, and dropping your price does mean that you'll sell more. Usually for us, it's like tomatoes are a really big deal for a lot of farmers. So what that looks like is, okay, I have a full pallet of tomatoes. I was gonna sell them at $4 a pound today, but I see that this big farm and this big farm is already down to 350, and I like don't have space to mess around. I've got a lot of volume to move and I need to get through it. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it to 350 or maybe even 325 if I'm feeling crazy about it. So that does make a difference. People are paying attention to those prices in that market space. It doesn't always mean that you need to be the cheapest to sell more. That really isn't the case. Just staying within that range is great. And then for those big hard hitters like tomatoes that make or break your sales for that day, that's where you want to put that energy. And then I just want to talk a little bit about selling by the pound or by the each. There is no right way or wrong way. Um, and I would say if you have items that are uniform in size, go ahead and try to sell those by the each. For a lot of customers who are, tallying up their total in their heads to make sure that they can afford what they're buying, it's a lot easier to conceptualize each pricing totals than it is for people to understand what a pound is. Um, and so that's really a nice service for folks when you're able to do it. But I will say, I think the more lucrative option is to sell by the pound. You're just going to get more from it. And I don't personally see that when I switch to an each pricing and experiment with that. I don't see those items flying a whole lot faster than when I sold them by the pound. Um, and so my personal preference is buying by the pound over the each, but I would just say that's really not a hill I'm willing to die on. I think that that's something that is really just whatever you want to try to do at your farm and figure out what works best for you. There really isn't a right or wrong. So just wanted to speak to that for a second, but don't feel like you have to do one way or another. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about niche versus staple crops and how you kind of always want to have both. Um, so say, for example, on the left here, we've got these habanada peppers at Eloise Organic Farm. We're big pepper growers. People come to us for our peppers in the summer, and so we grow a lot of specialty peppers. I know that the habanada peppers are something that not a lot of farms grow. You can't get it from a lot of other places. And so I don't have an incentive to really drop the price because I know you're coming to me for it and you don't really have a lot of other options. I also know everything changes. The market will shift. What's popular and what's not popular will shift. If something becomes particularly popular, other farms are going to start growing it. Suddenly it's not so much of a niche crop anymore. So when you are in that moment and you have your niche crops, hold your ground because it might not always be that way, and definitely get the money that you can with it. Um, on the other hand, staple crops are something that can offer really steady income. Not everybody is going to go for the bright, shiny specialty vegetable every time, but like everybody's cooking with onions and carrots and potatoes and cabbage and all of those. And so that doesn't mean that you need to lower your price on staples, but it does mean that there's more competition for the pricing on those. Um, I know that our peppers are incredible and definitely compete with other people's peppers, but our onions, are pretty similar to other people's onions. And some customers do have favorites and are intimate enough with produce to have favorite, onions or favorite cabbage sources. But most people are going to kind of see them as the same and look at the pricing more in their decisions to buy. Um, Lately, staples used to be a lot cheaper, and I do like to keep our specialty crops at a higher price and then keep staples a little lower, just because food's really expensive and I want people to get the stuff that is a little more common and gonna fill up their plates throughout the week at a more reasonable cost. That being said, the cost of these staples has gone up a lot. Onions and carrots and cabbage, these all fetch a pretty high price per pound. Potatoes too at the market. Prices are just going up. So I think especially more than ever, staples can offer a really big price. And like I said, it's important to have both. Because your niche crops will draw people in. But if you only have niche crops, you're just a specialty little booth. You're not where somebody can go and get, um, you know, oh, I'm going to get my favorite thing and a couple other items there. If you only have the one special thing that they want, they might not take the time, as frequently to come and get that from your booth. Same if there's only staples and there's not really anything exciting or flashy to draw people in. It might not sell as many of those staples either. So it's really nice to have a balance of these two items and just understand the difference of the role that they play in your booth and in your sales. All right, so just a little bit on signage because I went over this a lot in the display presentation. It's just really important to have clear signage. I think there's a lot of customers who, if they're confused about what something costs or they don't know quite, what variety of something that sign is referring to, there's a lot of folks that will not ask and they'll just leave without buying the thing. And so I think making your signage as so that it functions as like an autonomous experience for your customer can be really helpful. And just not having a lot of busyness on it, keeping it nice, clean, and clear. And then, um, you don't always need to be fancy, like this sign on the left here that says parsnips. It's got a beautiful border. The font is very cared for. Like that person had time in the morning when they wrote that sign for sure. Um, and it doesn't always need to be fancy or beautiful to be functional. I'm a big proponent of these 8.5 by 11 laminated signs and just like get the word sale big on there. Get some like cute, stupid, alliterative phrase to like help draw people in and sell a feeling and then put your sale down. That really, really helps. And that one tool is probably like the cheapest tool that has helped me sell so much produce. And I will commonly drop prices in the last hour of market and do like end of day fail sale or end of day all bunches 2 for $6. I will engage with people that are passing the booth and be like end of day sale, like everything's 2 for $6, like come and grab stuff. We don't want to take, I'll say it out loud. We don't want to take it home. That's the time when I'm not afraid to start being like a hardcore salesman to try to move things. So I really recommend that simple tool, but also just keep your signage simple, tight and bright. And then just a little note of how impactful educational signage can be. So this example right here, I wrote, Brussels sprouts are really hard to grow organically. They have to be in this field for a really long time. They're really susceptible to pest damage, yada, yada. Like we're so grateful to have these because it takes so much work to produce. And that kind of educational signage functions in a variety of ways, but one big impact is when people understand and you invite them to understand more about the work that goes into that product, they're a lot more willing to pay the prices that you need to be able to grow that product. And they kind of understand that a little bit better. So just providing people with context and education is really helpful in that way. This is another example of like, if you don't want to do the like real rough looking 8.5 by 11 P sales sign, and you've got somebody on your team or you who likes to stay up late on a market night making graphic design images of vegetation signs, you can go ahead and put something together like this and just really emphasize selling a craving, selling a feeling, increases your sales. 100% increases your sales. Vegetables, especially local ones that people didn't grow up with, can be really abstract. I really highly recommend, like, even if it's printing recipes out from online and putting them, through a laminator and getting them onto your booth, it really, really helps people to understand, oh, that's what I could do with that. That looks good. That looks tasty. I'm gonna buy it. They might not feel that way if they just see a sign that's like celeriac on sale for this or whatever. So really recommend doing educational signage that involves recipes, anything that helps people want to crave that product more. All right, so this is a really important point. I touched on this before. You got to know what's in your control and what's not. There's a lot about retail sales that we can't control. This was just a couple weeks ago on my way to market in the snow. It was a great day. Um, so yeah, weather we cannot control, local events, sporting events, graduations, protests, all sorts of different events are going to impact your market day. And sometimes for no rhyme or reason, you just got a slow day. You run into another vendor at the bathroom and they're like, man, it is slow today. I can't even figure it out. Why is that? And you're like, I don't know. We also we just didn't move much today. So just recognize that that's something you're going to want to build into your sales plan. That some days are going to be worse than others, and some days are going to be better. And so, whatever you can do to kind of stabilize those sales and have other outlets is really important. But before we get into those alternate sales options, I just want to say when it is a slow day and you know that there's not going to be a lot of people going through the market, or you're watching and seeing that not a lot of people are going through the market, you need to take action to maximize the experience and the engagement with those few people. So if that's like sampling on a slow day, like if you don't have a line and you're not restocking your produce, take the time to do something else or make something like a gorgeous display and get it pushed forward. Put the extra time into putting it in the front, so that it's really in people's faces. And then when people walk past your booth, you've got a lot higher chance of them interacting with it. Maybe because I want to take a picture, because I don't have to enter your booth to look at your produce for a second, or because they smelled, garlic sauteing in your sample pan, or and they want a free sample or something. There's a lot you can do to engage people on a slow day. But there's also a lot you can do to just increase your sales that have nothing to do with the retail sales that you're running at that day. So I wanted to show you this picture. This was in the last presentation about displays. Our wonderful marketeer Jojo here setting up our booth. And in the back there, that is 2 full pallets of restaurant orders, and that is money. That's big time money. And so just because we have developed a system where we send out a weekly availability list to restaurants and we actively look for those chefs at market and, come to them, see them shopping at the booth. Hey, I'd love to get you better pricing than this. Like, can I add you guys on to our restaurant list? Like, let me get your contact information right now. Do that. Go and actively seek that out so that you can get pallets of orders back there, whatever makes sense for your scale. Um, and then also you can't really see back here, but also behind the rack there is 30 CSA boxes ready to get picked up. Those all really help to stabilize your income for that day. Say that like retail sales totally just tanked that day. It was like, well, I still made $3,000 with all of these orders or whatever it happens to be. And that makes that time a little bit more worth it. So I just suggest, really highly recommend trying to diversify your sales outlets if you're going to go to market and just make the most of your time there. Um, and then another option are market buck cards, and I'll just say that for a minute. Like a lot of times it's basically $100 card that people buy for 90 bucks. They're really simple. You can get them printed at FedEx, just little basic business card size. And they pay for it up front, and then they use it at the booth for the next few weeks and work down their total. And it's as if they're shopping with a 10% discount all the time. So that's just a really nice way where you're offering your regulars a deal that they're excited about. And you're also ensuring that like, well, they already dropped $90 on us. So they're going to like keep coming back, keep coming back. And then they get a new card. So a lot of folks like that option too. Um, all right. So just a note on consistency. For your retail sales, it's really important to have a consistent product offering. And that doesn't mean that like you're going to be consistent with every product all the time. We're all farmers, we're all getting better at like different crops, different seasons. But make sure that like for the products that you know that your customers are coming to you for, try to be consistent with that if you can. Because if you know you're really inconsistent and when you have a certain item, people are just not going to come to you for that. When they, you know, are like, oh, I see this recipe, I want to make this thing, you're not going to pop up in their mind as like the place where they should go for if they don't see it consistently at your booth. Um, Keeping consistent pricing and booth layout is also really helpful as well. I experiment a lot with pricing and do it pretty day to day, week to week. And same with the booth layout because we have a really dynamic space and our produce changes a lot. And so we're kind of we switch things up kind of often. But I think it's always important to keep in balance that experiment because it just affects your customer experience. And sometimes if you move something around and they can't find it, they won't buy it that day. Same as like your customers will often not see the signage that you put like right in front. If you don't make it like super easy and clear and simple, there's just a lot going on at market and it can get lost. And then on the restaurant sales side, I just say it's same thing, but more so, particularly with your product offering. Chefs are working with a lot of moving parts and trying to figure out their menu and like when their kitchen team is going to have time to like process that veg and all of that. So, and they kind of get used to, you know, making their dishes with your produce and what it looks like. And so if you can have as consistent an offering of produce as you can, that's really helpful. Always send that list out at the same time every week, or at least the same day and make sure that you've got clear payment policies and due dates. Doesn't mean that you need to like slap a fee on if somebody's, you know, 1 week late paying or something like that. You can if that's your policy, but it just really aids in preventing miscommunications and making sure your cash flow is flowing. Um, and then in those emails, you know, you've got your clear pricing structure. I'm going to sell cucumbers this week for $30 for a 10-pound case, $50 for a 20-pound case. I'm giving incentive to buy in quantity, just like retail. And then if you've got like a long list of vegetables, it does really help to give a quick little something at the top. Don't mention more than 3 things. 3 is always a good rule. Um, and just be like this week, you know, I'll just say literally what we put in our availability this week. Like we've got a ton of purple sprouting broccoli coming on. Watercress is going out of season. Get it before it's gone. Um, and you know, we've got a big planting of scallions that we need to get out of the house because we're planting tomatoes, whatever. Those are the 3 things I'm going to talk about. And sometimes I mention that farm information of like why I'm trying to move that product this week. Like I need help moving this product for how it works within the farm routine. And then other times I might say like, you know, the purple sprouting broccoli can be roasted just like asparagus. You can leave it long. It's really such a special spring thing. Make sure to like get it on your menus before it's out of season. Those are things that all your chefs might not know. And they might read that and be like, oh, that's a special thing. I want to talk about that special thing and promote it on my menu. So whatever you do, keep it tight and bright. Just showcase the couple special items that are, you know, for sale that you really want to showcase and leave it at that. And I said that before, search out chefs at market. And then this also just opens up a world where you might be able to do orders midweek or whatever your off part of the week is from your market. Because those restaurants that you're selling to, say you're selling on the weekend, they've got sales, their biggest most restaurants are going to have their biggest dinner days on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so for them to always shop on a Saturday means they're going to have to hold that produce for a week. And if folks can get a Wednesday delivery, it just kind of works better in a restaurant. time frame throughout the week. And so that's just a really helpful thing. And your presence at the market can build those relationships that can add on a whole nother sales day for you outside of that retail day. So just a little bit on record keeping. I'm very much a data person and like will waste all of my time trying to get all the data if I could. But I think it's really important to think about what data is important for you to keep and understand and what data is not. Um, I have seen a lot of different iterations of inventory systems to really keep track of what you're sending to market and what you're bringing back. I think it's important to understand that a lot of that are going to be estimations, especially for the per pound items. It's one thing to like count the each items, but something like, cases of potatoes, unless you're going to take the time to like weigh out every single box and record like the exact weight of everything going in and out. Um, that takes labor and that takes time. And sometimes at the end of market, I don't think a lot of folks want to do that. But just also to recognize that like if I estimate that a half a box went back, it might be more like a third, it might be more like 2/3, and that changes with each person. So you got to just take that data with a grain of salt. Or if the exact data is really important to you, weigh the boxes out. Uh, but I also want to just say that like not all information needs to be quantitative data. Um, I could like plug in, all of that exact data and then run it through a pivot table in Excel. And then I could get you this data that says that like you sold out of Italian peppers 95% of the time this year. It's like I could have told you that without doing all those numbers. I'm at the market and I'm looking and I'm seeing like this, and this. Those three items are flying off the shelf and they did all year. I never had to lower the price. They always sold out in the first couple hours. We should totally grow a little bit more of that thing. Not going to go crazy and maybe like double production, but I'm going to increase it by 25%. Um, and I think that's also just really important to note. Like what you can know through noticing, um, doesn't necessarily need to be calculated. One thing that we do record each week that makes a big difference is what time things sold out, just to kind of help us understand how much we're going to send the following week. If I see that like, oh damn, I sent 200 bunches of that and it sold out in an hour and a half, like I could send more. I didn't think I could. Okay. And that's really different than like, oh, it took all day to sell those 200 bunches. I'm not going to up that number next week. Um, and then just as you're understanding like how to build your sales over time, long-term deal, like what produce you want to offer, what are popular, just kind of having your pulse on that. I just think it's really important to just talk to everyone in your community and develop relationships. Um, it's really important to talk with your customers at market. What are they doing with those vegetables? Like, have they ever had this thing? Why don't they like that? Talk to chefs, talk to other farmers. Like, we're all just in this community, and your farm is one piece of that. And so, kind of figuring out what you have to offer, what people want. It's just a really ongoing relationship that you exist within as your farm, moves through different market spaces. So I think it's just really important to always be noticing these things. You're not going to get some perfect survey that's going to tell you like 80% of my chefs want me to grow more of this or whatever. Like I do send surveys out and I do get some of that information, but I think the bulk of the most useful information I get is just from those relationships. And that's it. That's it at least for as tight and bright as I can make this presentation. But yeah, basically with everything, let the process inform your product. Every single farmer's market, the neighborhood that market is in, the people who attend that market space, these are all factors that change and are going to change the way that you want to market your booth and run your sales. So I think just, really trust yourself and trust what you're noticing, and then adapt when things aren't working and shift it up. Um, yeah, so I hope that y'all learn something from this that'll help you in making the most of your time at market. You're welcome to reach out to me at any time. Uh, and I'd be really interested to hear in other ideas that people have beyond what I've shared today, too. It'd be really great. So thank you.